Good afternoon, honorable speaker. Good afternoon, honorable participants from various institutions around Indonesia and also probably from outside of Indonesia. And welcome to the 16th SDGs goal in Sustainable Development Goals webinar series, proudly presented to you by Biro Kerjasama dan Hubungan Internasional or BKHI UKSW. Selamat sore, kami ucapkan kepada seluruh peserta di kegiatan webinar Sustainable Development Goals yang dipersembahkan oleh Biro Kerjasama dan Hubungan Internasional Universitas Kristen Satya-Wacana. Di sore hari ini kita memasuki goal yang ke-16, dan sebelum kita memulai seri di sore hari ini, izinkan saya membacakan beberapa participation guideline. Please allow me to familiarize yourself with our participant guideline for SDGs webinar series. Number 1, all participants' microphone is turned off upon entry to this Zoom room. Mikrofon Anda telah kami nonaktifkan ketika memasuki ruangan Zoom ini, dan Anda nanti dapat mengaktifkannya ketika kami mengizinkannya dalam sesi tanya-jawab. Number 2, please change your participant's name as follows: home university-name-student ID, for example, UKSW-RICO-672020-001. If you are a representative from other institution, for example, a lecturer or staff from other institution outside of UKSW or from UKSW, you can also use UKSW your institution's name only. Mohon untuk mengganti nama peserta Anda dengan format universitas asal atau institusi asal, spasi nama depan, dan spasi NIM jika ada adalah mahasiswa. Number 3, please type in your questions in the chat box, or you can also raise your hand and your microphone will be unmuted. Kepada para peserta yang terhormat, Anda dapat langsung menuliskan pertanyaan Anda di dalam kolom chat, atau juga bisa menggunakan fitur raise hand, maka mikrofon Anda kami izinkan untuk bisa di-unmute. And last but not least, the evaluation form is to be announced towards the end of this afternoon session. Perlu kami informasikan bahwa link absensi dan evaluasi akan kami umumkan menjelang akhir sore hari ini, di sesi sore hari ini, di mana nantinya setelah mengisi form tersebut, e-certificate dan juga materi presentasi akan otomatis terkirimkan ke alamat email Bapak Ibu Saudara-saudari sekalian. And without further ado, let me introduce you to our 16th SDGs webinar speaker. Ini adalah narasumber ke-16 pada webinar SDGs BKH UKSW, di mana temanya adalah SDGs Goal number 16, Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions. And our speaker is Dr. Ishak Y.M. Latu, PhD, acting as the head of the Center for the Study of Religion, Pluralism, and Democracy, and also a lecturer at the Faculty of Theology, Universitas Kristen Satya-Wacana. Pembicara dan juga narasumber ke-16 pada webinar SDGs BKH di sore hari ini adalah Bapak Ishak Y.M. Latu, PhD, selaku kepala dari Pusat Studi Agama, Pluralisme, dan Demokrasi, dan juga seorang dosen atau pengajar di Fakultas Teologi Universitas Kristen Satya-Wacana. So without further ado, let me give the screen directly to our honorable speaker this afternoon, Pak Ishak Latu. The screen is now yours. Dipersilahkan, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Mas Ryan. I'll try to share my screen. Okay. Thank you, Mas Ryan and BKHI for having me in this series. And today I'm trying to share a little bit about my research on religious pluralism, majoritarianisms, and the politics of recognition in Indonesia. So it's probably links to peace and justice in context of Indonesia, especially when we talk about like civil rights or citizenship rights or citizenry in the context of Indonesia, that I think it is very much linked to sustainable development in the context of Indonesia. because when we talk about sustainable development in Indonesia, religious issues is one the biggest issue that we have to also deal with when it comes to development in the context of Indonesia. So I will try to talk a little bit about the challenge of religious pluralism and political recognition in Indonesia. And I will also talk about religious diversity without religious pluralism and cultural pluralism and constitutional pluralism in Indonesia, and go to the politics of recognition itself in the context of Indonesia. So, so recently in Indonesia, especially in the context of religious pluralism in Indonesia, we are dealing with religious freedoms, especially the freedom for worship or the ownership of religious building in Indonesia. And I wrote in Jakarta Post, English-based Jakarta newspaper about the conflict of GKI Taman Yasmin, or Indonesian Christian Church in Bogor, and how they have been fighting for the rights to worship, to do the liturgy in their own religious buildings, but because of government regulation, not that government doesn't contestation in government and governmental authority, I will say that in national level it's okay, but when it comes to local level, they have to struggle with policy in local level. So I was taking this experience and putting them as tolerance without recognition, because in the sense the mayor of Bogor in Western Java province provide them with new land to build up religious building, while according to national bylaw, they have their own rights to do liturgy or do Christian worship in their previous building. So this is kind of, for me, this example is kind of tolerance without recognition. That in sense of tolerance, we see the power relation play behind the issue of religious pluralism in Indonesia. When I talk about tolerance and religious pluralism, or even majorocraticism itself in Indonesia, that based on the rule of majority, is not only case of one on religion in one place, but it is case of many places, many religion in the context when people claim their religious followers as majority in one area. Because in Indonesia, in national level, we have Islam as predominant religion, but when we go to some area like Bali, we will see Hinduism as majority, and if we go to some other area, we find another religion's majority or predominant religion in the area. So in the context of relation, like when power relation apply to relationship among religious followers, we will see that that's tolerance, sometimes tolerance because you have to tolerate people in power, because people in power sometimes give toleration but based on their own power and their own interests, but without recognition, meaning the position itself, like position of religious followers is not equal. Power relation apply in this condition. So the challenge of politics of pluralism in Indonesia, like I mentioned just now, that religious diversity, like religious diversity without ideology of pluralism in Indonesia. Sometimes we feel like that, like we believe in religious diversity because our constitution, Indonesian constitution says so, but religious diversity sometimes goes without ideology of religious pluralism. What I mean by religious pluralism is not only theological definition of religious pluralism, but it is somewhat political, sociological understanding of religious pluralism. That means equal rights for all citizens in one countries, regardless their religious background. So this is the meaning of religious pluralism that I apply in this article, in this paper. And when we talk about a condition of religious pluralism in Indonesia, like I mentioned before in the previous slide, that we face majoritarianisms, that people who are from predominant religion in one particular place claim that because majority support or contribute to ballot to voting process in one particular area, and they have to rule the area. So in majoritarianisms, my paper published in annual review of sociology of religion in 2009, I said that it is majoritarian rule in order to support only majoritarian or majority interest. And also in 2002, Robert Hebner from Boston University also mentioned about majoritarian turn in Indonesia. That he also find out that there is a tendency toward majoritarianisms that I mentioned in 2019. That it is true that it exists in Indonesia, that majoritarianism rules in Indonesia, and sometimes people define majoritarianism as democracy, while it's totally different concept, because democracy is support all interests, not only interests of majority, while majoritarianism only goes to feed interests of majority. And another important research from Ahmad Burhani, is my senior in America. I study in University of California, Santa Barbara. He wrote an article about accompanying minority, and he said that sometimes like minority or marginal groups in Indonesia experience violence in the context of horizontal violence, violence from society or from groups to groups, or violence in vertical levels when government policy tend to discriminate one religious group. Again, I mean, when I mean government, it is not only government from one particular area, but also government in other area where particular religious group claim majoritarianisms and marginalize group from other religions. And also another important research from Burhani again, and my two articles on irony of religious pluralism and structural religious violence in Indonesia. both of us, we also find out that Sharia law, or sometimes we also find Injili law, or law based on biblical or theological or Christian doctrine, or any religious bylaws that relate to religious interests in many areas in Indonesia, including probably in Bali when we talk about Hinduism, politics, and interreligious relationship or religious pluralism in Indonesia. So Burhani curved this context of how local government apply religious related bylaws by propose the concept of conservative turn in Indonesia. We find or we experience some conservative turn in Indonesia, that people trying to be conservative. And I also mentioned about the irony of religious pluralism, because it stands, or in the surface, it's religious pluralism, but actually it is not, because we still experience discrimination in many levels, from one religious group to another religious group. And also, I still see the trap of blasphemy law in Indonesia. Peraturan Pemerintah Nomor 1 PPNS 1965, Junto Undang-Undang Nomor 5 PPNS 1969. This is blasphemy law, but so far people try to use this blasphemy law as a tool to discriminate people from majority group or marginal group, or using Burhani's terms, objectively occupy and disadvantageous position in society. So why it's come into being in my research, I will say that because in Indonesia, in many aspects of religious life, we experience diversity, but again, diversity without pluralisms. So I try to define what is diversity and what is pluralism. So diversity is diversity, but without mutuality, while pluralism, we believe in mutual relation, in equal relation. In diversity, we have tolerance, but tolerance itself apply power relation. We can check in like Michel Foucault's work. We can also see Homi Bhabha's work on relationship with on ethnic groups in multicultural society, and Homi Bhabha coined the tolerance without equality as containment of cultural difference, meaning culture from dominant group will hegemonize all religious aspect or political aspect without leaving any ample room for people from marginal group. So tolerance in other side of pluralisms, we believe in recognizing diversity, not only understanding. So tolerance and understanding. So tolerance against based on power relation, while in understanding, we try to put others as in equal relation, as in friendship, in mutual relationship again. So, and diversity is it's basically factual diversity, but in pluralism, it's also diversity, but recognizing diversity. So we recognize diversity. We have diversity and use diversity for something positive in mutual and horizontal vertical relation. Diversity is social fact, yes, but in pluralism, society diversity is social capital. That by using social capital from civil society studies like Robert Putnam studies and some other scholar in civil society studies, we'll see that diversity is important because only through diversity people can develop the concept of democracy and pluralisms in many countries. And using the lens of Alexis Tocqueville, French writer who wrote Democracy in America back then in, I think, 17th century. He also tried to understand the concept of democracy only when it comes to diversity. So when one society can manage diversity, it can be social capital. Otherwise, diversity itself can be social, the means for social conflict. In Indonesia, in the context of Indonesia, we have constitutional pluralisms in Indonesian constitution actually. So in this picture, we see the process of founders of Indonesian conversation toward our Undang-Undang Dasar 1945, the Constitution of 1945, that give equal position for all religious community, everybody in Indonesia that have equal position. Before that, we have a very structural relationship in many kingdoms, but when it comes to the concept of Republic Indonesia, the Republic of Indonesia, based on Indonesian national constitution, then everybody are equal. And this is actually the celebration of diversity in Indonesian context, because according to Indonesian constitution, again, we have the concept of pluralisms that need to be imposed in all aspects of national life, from central in Jakarta to very or remote area in all over the Indonesian islands. If we look at the study of religious pluralism, take example of Stephen Monsma and Soper work published in 29 about relationship between religion and society. They propose three models of religion and politics of and state relation. The first one is strict church-state separation, or strict religion-state separation, meaning there is a wall of separation between state and religion. United States of America, for instance, laïcité in French after French Revolution, for instance. Second is the established church models or religious models, meaning government support particular religious group. Like probably we check Constitution of Malaysia Constitution, we will see the particular religion is recognized as a state official religion, and because the recognition, then state need to support religious life because it is already in constitution. The third model is structuralist models. For them, state need to treat all religious group equally. I think this is also happen in many countries that believe in many religions. But when we come to Indonesian model, I myself propose what I call established religious pluralism model. Why that so? Because in Indonesia, we have state favorite religions and all our world religions. Now, recently, Indonesian government tried to also include local religions or local religious traditions, but it is basically 6 religions that recognized by government, and they have support from Indonesian government. We have Ministry of Religious Affairs that also support the interests of the 6 religions in Indonesia. But at the same time, according to Indonesian constitution, it is equal treatment toward the 6 religious community, including local religious practices that also become recognized tradition faith in Indonesia. So it is support by government, but as well as support by government, as well as government itself try to be fair toward religious practices, religious community in Indonesia. At least it's in Indonesian constitution. In our local level, in cultural level, actually, Indonesian society, my research in Central Java and also my research in Maluku shows that in cultural level, we also have strong foundation for civic recognition, for pluralism itself. So Muslim and Christian, Buddhists and Muslims, Hindus and Muslims, or Christian or Buddhists can go hand in hand, celebrate the religious tradition, and intermingle sometimes in religious ritual like what happened in Ambon, in order to also strengthen the foundation for religious pluralism itself. So I will say that in cultural level, we have strong foundation for religious pluralisms. In constitutional level, we have also strong foundation for religious pluralisms. But sometimes when it comes to political party interests, sometimes it is we have deviation, and we have also kind of majoritarian turn or conservative turn, because it's relate very much to ballot. It is relate very much to votings in political realm. So I will conclude with this, that actually in the context of civic recognition links to peace and justice in Indonesia, we have structural claims of the founders. So I will say that that's also covenant of Indonesia. It's covenant using John Bales, it is covenant of pluralisms. And we have the covenant actually in intermediary associational initiative for citizenry. Sometimes we have many groups that also work for Indonesian religious pluralism. We have Forum Kerukunan Antarumat Beragama, or like in Philippines, they call it Pastor Imam Conference, I believe. So that's the meeting, regular meeting of religious leaders in order to in order to establish initiative for peace in Indonesia. We have also in cultural quotidian web of cultural trust. In everyday level, in cultural level, we have very strong foundation philosophy again for mutual trust. If we use Francis Fukuyama's work on the web of trust and how the web of trust could be developed using symbolic action, everyday engagement, everyday activities in one particular society that can develop the web of trust itself, and it is can tie up community together. We also have it could be like strengthened by virtual imagination of cities and others. It is from the theory from Benedict Anderson that imagination actually tied up Indonesia from Aceh to Papua, or in his research Aceh to Ambon during colonial time because of the reading. Then because of the reading, then we have imagination. Taking from other theory from literature, we have also the theater of imagination when we read some books, when we read materials that we share with others, and this also create the mind, not only mind map, but the theater of mind that help us to imagine something else, imagine beyond our social, physical boundaries. But also in virtual imagination through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other social media means, we can also try to strengthen imagination and also strengthen civic recognition. We, like in my research, I also realized that social media can also bring contested imagination. And on the one hand, it can strengthen civic recognition, but on the other hand, it can also bring conflict to society. But I will also try to be positive to see that that one means to strengthen religious pluralism, and I found it in Nahdlatul Ulama's youth initiative to create many websites that bring the idea of religious pluralism recognition into web, so it can also accessed by youth in Indonesia, and it's create imagination of others. Then it's also bring the concept of friendly image instead of enemy image in Indonesia. So taking this, although we have a challenge, but in the context of Indonesia, we have hope. We have constitutional foundation for civic recognition, peace, and justice. In cultural level, we also have the same, that we have very strong foundation, cultural philosophy for recognition of others, and also religious pluralism in the context of Indonesia. So what we have to do when we talk about development in Indonesia is we have to also reclaiming civic rights in constitution, at the same time strengthen relationship in society. So we have two important means for peace, justice, and development in Indonesia, and development that bring justice for all, being sustainable peace through, again, reclaiming rights, equal rights in constitution, then strengthen relationship in quotidian cultural levels. So I think that's from me. Thank you so much for keep staying with me and bearing with me. And I will open for answer and question, and I will be happy to respond to your question and answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Ishak, for the very interesting presentation and also very insightful for us, and in this limited but short but efficient time that we have this afternoon. And I'm going to open the question and answer session as Pak Ishak earlier mentioned. Bapak Ibu Saudara-saudari peserta dapat mengajukan pertanyaan dalam bahasa Indonesia ataupun dalam bahasa Inggris dengan langsung menuliskannya di dalam kolom chat, ataupun juga dapat menggunakan fitur raise hand yang ada di kolom reactions, lalu klik raise hand untuk kami bisa mengaktifkan mikrofon Anda sehingga bisa langsung bertanya secara live kepada Pak Ishak terkait tema SDGs nomor 16, yaitu Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions. Ya, kami nantikan pertanyaan Anda. Baik, we still wait for any questions and comments. It doesn't have to be questions, of course. It can also be comments related to the SDGs goal number 16, that is peace, justice, and strong institution. Tidak harus berupa pertanyaan, tentu saja. Apabila Bapak Ibu Saudara-saudari ada komentar ataupun tanggapan yang ingin disampaikan terkait materi presentasi yang sudah dibawakan Pak Ishak tadi, ataupun juga ingin menanggapi soal SDGs Goal nomor 16 ini tentang peace atau kedamaian, justice, keadilan, dan juga strong institution di Indonesia juga khususnya. Okay, I see we have our first question from Ibu Deborah. You can now unmute yourself, Bu. Silakan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mas Ryan, for the opportunity, and thank you so much, Kak Ishak, for being our speaker today. This is a really nice opportunity, especially for me, because last time I heard you, it was in my class of Christian ethics, where it's maybe 10 more than 10 years ago when you be my lecturer at that class. And it's always interesting to listen to your thoughts and lectures. Guys, your material today is really deep, and I think we need to think more about it. And as for me, I'm not really have enough understanding about that research, but it is nice to listen to you this afternoon. I just want to maybe asking or just give my thoughts about what we have to do in UKSW. I mean, UKSW is an institution, and then we also have a pluralism here and also diversity. And how can we apply in the UKSW context about peace, justice, and strong institution here? Because I believe that for me myself, being part of UKSW means I learn a lot about how to bring peace in the midst of diversity, and how to be tolerant with others in this diversity, and how to have mutual relation each other in this university. So maybe I would like to listen to your thoughts about it, how we apply those principles in our own environment in UKSW. Thank you, Kak Isak.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Debbie, for your question. Is very interesting, especially when uh, when we discuss about the calling of Satya Wacana in the midst of Indonesia. Probably we can put it like, what is the contribution of Indonesia in of Satya Wacana Christian University in sustainable development in Indonesia, a country, a country with Muslim, like the biggest Muslim majority country in the world. So how Satya Wacana can contribute to Indonesia in that sense. And I will also refers back to the idea of the establishment of Satya Wacana during conversation of Pastor Prabowo Winoto with Satya Wacana First Rector Dr. Noto Hamijoyo about the idea of establishing a Christian university in context of Indonesia. And I remember reading some of Pastor Prabowo Winoto's work, and he mentioned that Satya Wacana need to be campus that nationalist, but also ecumenist or pluralist, in the sense that we have to strengthen the idea of Indonesian pluralism itself, meaning only through recognizing other elements of Indonesia within a Christian university, then we can strengthen Indonesia. And remember that at the time when Satya Wacana is established, Indonesian President Sukarno launched what he called nation and character buildings, because Indonesia is a country consists of many nations actually. Before we become a nation in Indonesian nation, actually we consist of many nations. But after independence, Sukarno, the past president, need the concept of building a nation from reality that we are a nation. So Satya Wacana can contribute in this sense. And when we look at the history of Satya Wacana, we know that 400, the first 400 students of Satya Wacana in 1956 already come from many religions and many ethnics, including Papua at the time, Dutch Papua. It is not Indonesian yet, it is still Dutch Papua, but they already in Satya Wacana at the time. And I will say that the idea of Satya Wacana is to support pluralism. That's why when we have our musola for Muslim students to pray in Gedung G, in G building, I was so happy because we have that. We provide them with reading prayers, so they can also conduct their own 5-time prayers when they in campus for any activity, academic activity. So I will also say that in order to support Indonesia, we have to, again, as Satya Wacana, we have to base our idea on constitution, a national constitution. The national constitution already say that everybody is equal in Indonesia. And also, we have to bring cultural, or we also develop some ideas of recognition from culture, because, like, for instance, Satya Wacana is located in Central Java, and Javanese culture provide many beautiful values for recognizing others. Like in Indonesia, we have memanusiakan manusia, wong ke wong, or or humanize human. So I think it is a very important value that based on Japanese culture. Then we have Christian culture, Japanese culture, national culture. We are not only Christian university, but we are national university, and we are not a university that also respect local cultures. Okay, so I think that's from me, Mbak Debbie. I saw Mbak Tia also raise hand. Yeah.
Okay, Thea, you can now unmute yourself, please,
Okay.
and maybe open your video.
I'm sorry, I cannot turn on my video because the situation here is not really conducive.
Okay.
But good evening, Bujak. Thank you for your presentation. Mungkin saya akan tanyanya di bahasa Indonesia aja ya, biar lebih casual mungkin. Ini pertanyaan saya sih berkaitan dengan isu pemberian izin, bukan isu ya, pemberian izin di GKI Yasmin Bogor yang diberikan Pak Wali Kota Bima Arya beberapa waktu lalu. Saya baca isu itu kemudian dibahas di Twitter, dan banyak orang ramai memberikan opini mereka. Dan seperti biasa ketika ada kebijakan baru muncul, itu kan pasti ada yang pro dan ada yang kontra. Jadi ketika saya coba lihat diskursusnya di situ, ada yang istilahnya kayak berterima kasih sama Pak Wali Kota atas pemberian izinnya, bahwa setelah sekian lama GKI Yasmin berjuang untuk mendapatkan izin pembangunan gereja, akhirnya mereka granted itu dari Pak Bima Arya sebagai, dan mereka juga merasa bahwa ini adalah salah satu langkah dari pemerintah Bogor untuk kemudian bisa acknowledge pluralisme di kota. Tapi juga ada pihak yang kemudian sanksi bahwa pemberian izin itu hanya berlaku untuk gereja-gereja yang besar, yang suaranya terdengar, dan pemberian izin tersebut merupakan cara untuk membungkam protes-protes yang diberikan atas perjuangan mereka untuk mendapatkan izin pembangunan gereja itu. Nah, yang jadi pertanyaan saya adalah, atau saya sih lebih ke tanya pendapat Bujak sendiri, apakah kemudian permasalahan izin pendirian gereja ini itu segala sesuatunya harus dilakukan dari bawah, bottom up, atau apakah memang model politik Indonesia, model politik dari pemerintahan kita ini tuh masih belum bisa merealisasikan prinsip-prinsip peace and justice untuk semua agama di Indonesia ini. Seperti itu. Terima kasih.
Oke, terima kasih. Terima kasih, Tia. Saya mungkin coba jawab bahasa Indonesia sedikit, kemudian nanti sedikit dalam bahasa Inggris supaya teman-teman yang lain mengerti. Tapi ini menarik, pertanyaannya Tia itu menarik. Apakah ini sebenarnya sebuah anugerah atau sebuah bencana dalam konteks kebijakan Wali Kota Bandung? Nah, saya menulis di Jakarta Post saya kira 2011 atau 2012, saya lupa. Tapi waktu saya menulis itu, sebenarnya Mahkamah Agung atau Indonesian Supreme Court itu sudah mengeluarkan keputusan nomor 127 PK-TUN 2009 yang menyatakan bahwa izin mendirikan bangunan bagi GKI Taman Yasmin itu sah, tidak masalah. Tapi Wali Kota Bogor waktu itu menolak untuk mengeksekusi kebijakan itu, keputusan tertinggi di Supreme Court itu, dengan justru mencabut izin mendirikan bangunan. Padahal Supreme Court yang tertinggi bilang bahwa izin mendirikan bangunan itu tidak masalah sama sekali. Nah, Bima Arya kemudian menawarkan lahan pengganti GKI Taman Yasmin, Kompas 18 Juni 2021. Nah, masalahnya ini kan sebenarnya pemberian lahan baru ini justru tidak menyelesaikan masalah. Masalah kita sebenarnya adalah kita lemah di law enforcement. Bahwa secara konstitusional kita menjamin hak semua orang untuk beribadah. Supreme Court Indonesia telah memutuskan bahwa izin Taman Yasmin tidak bermasalah. Harusnya itu yang dilakukan, harusnya itu yang dilaksanakan. Melaksanakan keputusan Supreme Court bahwa Taman Yasmin boleh beribadah di gerejanya yang sah secara hukum. Nah, hanya saja karena sekali lagi logika majoritarianisme itu atau majoritanisme itu, lalu kemudian membuat Bima Arya sebagai wali kota Bandung merasa bisa mengambil keputusan apa saja termasuk menawarkan lahan. Oke, pada waktu yang singkat penggantian lahan itu terlihat menjanjikan dan baik. Tapi in the long run itu sama sekali tidak membantu karena hanya melanggengkan cara berpikir mayoritarisme, artinya mayoritas yang berkuasa, dan ini tidak hanya dalam konteks Bogor, dalam konteks di Manado, Batu Plat di Kupang, konteks beberapa tempat di Maluku Barat Daya, di Papua, bahkan di Bali juga sama, majoritarianisme dari agama non-Muslim terhadap Islam sama, persoalannya sama seperti itu. Jadi ini tidak menyelesaikan masalah, justru menjebak kita dalam persoalan kemayoritasan yang apa ya menjadi perangkap sangat luar biasa, dan kemudian ini juga membuat kita tidak menjalankan hukum, menjalankan konstitusi, amanat konstitusi. Nah, ini yang jadi masalah. Jadi in the long run, I will say that the mayor of Bogor doesn't solve the problem, only like keep Indonesia in the trap, that same trap, majoritarianism trap, and the trap of our inability to do our law enforcement in the context of Indonesia. So I will say that in the long run, it is endangers religious pluralism, religious recognition, and it is actually challenge our constitution that already give equal position, equal rooms for all citizens in Indonesia. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Ishak, for the comments, the answer given to Thea, and thank you for the question as well, Thea, and also Bu Deborah for the questions earlier. And I would like to go to the chat room. There is one other question from Pak Joseph, our Deputy Director for Internationalization and Institutional Cooperation at KSW. I would like to read out this question. Sometimes the irony is that to achieve or simply maintaining peace, people wage war or fight with each other, or people just keep silent only to make sure that everything and also everyone is peaceful or in peace. And I think tolerance without recognition, which is a good thesis, is partly because some people, the majority and the minority alike, just keep silent to maintain peace. This kind of peace certainly does not address or solve the problem of intolerance and violence among others. What would you recommend, especially for an institution which is supposedly a strong institution like UKSW? I think this question is also related to Bu Deborah's question. Okay, that is the question. Pak Ishak, could you respond to that question? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jos, for bringing the question. I really like it, especially when you say that many people, like majority of people in Indonesia sometimes keep silence in order to maintain peace, then this is exactly what I just mentioned about the concept of tolerance. Sometimes in the name of tolerance, we keep silence because we have to like keep peace, but it's actually like fake peace. It is not sustainable peace. So when we talk about sustainable peace, again, we have to dismantling tolerance without recognition in Indonesia, or religious diversity without ideology of religious pluralism in Indonesia in order to recognize others. Again, I will say that the calling of Satya Wacana as an institution is, as we already established the values since we or the founders of the university developed this university, we already believe in the value of nationalisms and also ecumenicalism, so or religious pluralism that we use right now, the term that we use right now. So because Jos is from education, I think in the concept of education, we have to also try to do that. So in our curriculum, we also try to give room for the student to raise their question and also concern, and try to also help them to think about their rights as citizen. So citizen, like the concept of citizenry, also part of our curriculum, and also again, like although in terms of quantity, Christianity is minority in Indonesia, but again, we have in our curriculum, we have to remind our students that the concept of majority and minority is actually outside our constitution. We don't have the concept minority and majority within our constitution. It is a concept out of our constitution. So there is no concept of majority and minority within our constitution. Everybody just have equal rights, just warga negara Indonesia. So everybody everybody has equal rights in the context of Indonesia. So the process of education that remind them of their rights, I think it is very important in the context of Satya Wacana. And also, like I mentioned before, that like the religious buildings, like we have Musola in Gedung G, that we probably need to also think about that, probably considering our Muslim student body, probably we can also make quite bigger, like bigger than the one that we have today, so they can also practice, they can have their 5-time rituals within Satya Wacana, because our ideas again is to bring or to develop or to nurture the idea of nationalisms and ecumenical or religious pluralism in Indonesia. By bringing this, we will then contribute to sustainable peace, development, and justice in Indonesia. Or we create spatial justice in Indonesia in Satya Wacana, and also we can help our students to think about Indonesia. So in order to think about Indonesia, we have to also give them spatial justice within our university itself. That's what my 2 cents on just. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the comments or response from Pak Ishak, and also thank you for the question from Pak Joseph. And we are nearing our end of this afternoon session. It is quite quick, actually. Time flies. And I would like to go again to Pak Ishak as final statements, probably. And I have some comments related to the SDGs goal number 16, that is we are talking about right now. As COVID-19 has set back progress across all of the Sustainable Development Goals, including stalling the progress on SDG 16, aiming at fostering peace, justice, and inclusion. So without any progress on SDGs number 16, how can we achieve all other SDGs in, as we all know that the agenda is by 2030, we hope to achieve all of the 17 goals in SDGs. How do you put the SDGs number 16? Would you consider it as the key for the recovery of the COVID-19 situation at the moment? And I think that can also be your closing statement. So could you please comment on my suggestions, and also that will be our closing statements for this afternoon session, and then we will go for a quick photo session. Thank you. The screen is yours.
Recently, I read Slavoj Zizek's books on COVID-19, and he said that probably we have to think again about about liberalisms, and probably we have to combine liberalisms with socialism. So we said that idea of socialism need to be strengthened in society, so we can have social solidarity. We can also think about others, not only about the benefit of multinational corporation, for instance. Like what we have right now, why AstraZeneca is so cheap, it's because the patent of AstraZeneca's inventors already he give up the patent rights, the intellectual rights or rights for that, so everybody can access that, can have the AstraZeneca. So this is go in line with what Slavoj Zizek said or mentioned about the idea of socialisms, that think about others, not only about benefit of company, multinational company, like intellectual rights that comply or that go that intellectual rights that used to earn monies in many multinational corporations in many countries. So he said that we probably need to think about that again, think about the concept of liberalism. And I will say that I agree with that because I'm also COVID survivors. Then what I experienced in the hospitals, the Muslim nurse with Muslim symbols can also pray for me, and how I transform the prayer, the Muslim prayer, into universal language, and then transform them again into my Christian language. So social solidarity in this sense is very important, and it will bring justice and sustainable peace, I think. And in the context of COVID-19 pandemic, we also sometimes struggle with religious issues, especially when it comes to religious doctrine, not only in Islam, but also in Christianity in Indonesia. In Christianity in Indonesia, many people refuse to get vaccine because they say that it is links to 666, 666, and including my mother. My mother refusing a vaccine because of that, and I try to also give understanding to my mom, and then she get vaccinated. So this is very important, I think, to look at the issue of religious ideas within the concept of peace and justice, especially in a country like Indonesia, because we only can have sustainable peace and we can have spatial justice in the concept of Indonesia only when we can deal with religious issues in positive way. So, or unless we will trap in social conflict again because of religious doctrine and religious faith in Indonesia. So I will say that I will probably taking that as my closing statement. The beyond the border. Now we are in Center for Pusat Studi Agama, Pluralism, and Democracy, Center for Study of Religion, Pluralism, and Democracy. We are about to publishing a book entitled Crossing Boundaries, COVID-19 Pandemic, Social Solidarity and Religious Engagement in Indonesia. It's about to come out, and we have support from Dialogue Institute in the United States, and it's about to. We are finishing ESBN and cover of the book. So wait. So if you're gonna once that, we can send them because it's in PDF and it is funded by Dialogue Institute, so we can send it for free. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Ishak, for the very inspiring and also very insightful presentation, and also very lively question and answer session. And let's give a virtual round of applause to Pak Ishak. Thank you very much, Pak Ishak, for delivering this afternoon's session. And now we will have a short photo session. Kami mohon kepada seluruh peserta untuk dapat mengaktifkan videonya sejenak. Kita akan mengambil sesi foto bersama sebelum kami membagikan link evaluasi dan absensi di sore hari ini, karena kita sudah melewati 9 menit dari waktu yang semestinya. Kami mohon maaf untuk itu. Ya, mohon sekali lagi untuk bisa mengaktifkan video, please do so and activate your video right now. We will have a short video session, photo taking session, and yeah, it will only be 1 to 2 minutes. Kami mengundang seluruh peserta sekali lagi yang bisa mengaktifkan videonya. If it is possible for you to activate your video, please do so now. Jika memungkinkan untuk mengaktifkan videonya, bisa dilakukan sekarang. Baik. Kita akan mulai dengan slide yang pertama. We will start from the first slide. Please give a big smile. Diganti Mbak speaker view di sebelah kanan atas. Okay, we will start from the first slide. Okay, we will start 1, 2, and 3. Tetap tersenyum, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we will continue to the next slide. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, please hold your smile, and then we will continue to the third slide. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and the next slide. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and the last slide. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and that concludes our photo taking session. Thank you very much for activating your video. Terima kasih sudah mengaktifkan videonya di sore hari ini, dan sekali lagi terima kasih sudah berpartisipasi dalam seri ke-16 webinar SDGs tentang Peace, Justice, and Strong Institution. I will now share you the evaluation form and the link absensi. Baik, link evaluasi dan absensi sudah kami kirimkan di dalam kolom chat, dapat langsung diakses. Please make sure that you inputted the right email address. Mohon pastikan agar Anda memasukkan alamat email Anda dengan benar, karena e-sertifikat dan juga materi presentasi di sore hari ini nanti akan otomatis terkirimkan ke alamat email yang Bapak Ibu Saudara-saudari sudah masukkan. Lalu untuk menyaksikan kembali rekaman sesi webinar SDGs dengan SDGs number 16 di sore hari ini, bisa mengunjungi channel YouTube PKH EKSW. Anda bisa subscribe dan juga menyaksikan seluruh rangkaian webinar SDGs dari seri 1 sampai 17 nanti. Apabila sudah kami upload, Bapak Ibu Saudara-saudari bisa mendapatkan notifikasi untuk bisa melihat kembali rekamannya. We will see you again in the next series of SDGs webinar. Sampai bertemu kembali di seri webinar SDGs pada minggu depan. And thank you for attending this virtual event, proudly presented to you by Biro Kerjasama dan Hubungan Internasional Universitas Kristen Satyawacana. And have a nice weekend. Stay safe and stay healthy. And thank you. Thank you very much, Pak Isa.
Terima kasih Om Jos, terima kasih Bung Rian, juga Deb, terima kasih banyak ya.
Thank you.
Ya, Mbak Yana, terima kasih, selamat menikah loh.
Kak Ihsan, thank you very much.
Ya, oke, bye, terima kasih. Ini masih ada kegiatan lain.